Hey, it's Jose here, and I just wanted to let you know that if you have a message to share, I want to tell you about Anchor. It is free and it is an easy way to create a podcast for you to share that message. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Everything you need to make a podcast in one place. There are certain creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And most importantly, you can get your message out to the world and impact the lives that you were created to impact. Download Anchor right now. Hey everyone, I am super excited to announce that my new book will be available on September 27th. The Lead Through Method, the proven steps to getting unstuck, leading your life, and getting results. So, mark your calendar, September 27th. Stay tuned for more. Hi, this is Jose, and this is the Jose Vargas Show. This podcast is for leaders who want to be equipped and empowered to become leaders worth following, both in their organization and in their homes. My mission is to help you create breakthroughs in your personal and professional life so that you can grow and live your life with excellence.
And you are in for a treat today because in this episode, I have the honor and the privilege of having a virtual leadership roundtable with amazing leaders from around the world, literally from Canada to the Philippines and here in the United States. We're going to talk about the highs and the lows of leadership and the principles that will help you succeed as a leader, both personally and professionally. And I'm joined by a group of great-looking leaders today, which, by the way, you can watch this episode as well on YouTube, and I'll put the link on the show notes below. So I want to introduce my guest today. I'm honored to have these amazing leaders from all walks of life, literally done amazing things and are doing amazing work around the world. And I want to introduce them to you today. We have Marc. Marc, I don't want to butcher your last name, and I can't say it right, so I'm going to have you say it.
It depends where you're at in Canada. If you're in English-speaking Canada, it's Petitpas, but if you're in Quebec, it's Petitpas. It means little step in English.
Oh, wow. So Marc is a business coach. Thank you for that, Marc. He's a business coach, a consultant, and he's the author of The 50-Year-Old Millennial, all the way again from Canada. So Marc, thank you so much for being here to have this conversation on leadership. I have a friend, Mike Rosado. He is the host of a podcast called Too Real with Mike Rosado. Mike is a pastor and the founder of Fervent Church, a growing church in New Jersey, and he's also a leadership coach. Again, he's from New Jersey. Mike, thank you so much for being here. Eric Landblom, he is a retired U.S. Marine Corps officer and a combat pilot. He's also the founder of Leader Develop. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here. We have my friend from the Philippines, Rafael Acantilado, who is a teacher by profession, but he is also on a mission to amplify voices that matter by helping podcasters turn their listeners into clients. He's in a brand new day over there in the Philippines. Thank you for being here, my friend. I also have a friend. We have so much in common, and we met back in 2020. She was raised on the south side of Chicago. I was born in Chicago. I wasn't raised there, but I was born there. And she is the host of Bright Spot Podcast. She's a doctor in clinical child psychology. Andrea Mata from the USA. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, hello.
And last but not least, we have Jay Lee. He was a Chief Master Explosion Ordnance Disposal Operator. He served 5 overseas tours, a certified high-risk naval instructor, and he is now CEO of a personal finance coaching company serving both the U.S. military special operations community and the civilian community in various occupations, debt levels, and income. Golden Compass LLC. Jay, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here with all of you.
Absolutely. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the Jose Vargas Show, this podcast. again, when we're trying to help leaders get unstuck. So let's dive right into this conversation. And I want to hear from you, right? Leadership is hard work, especially today, more than ever. The past few years have been challenging. I had an opportunity to talk to Pastor Mike, who's also on the show today, and just kind of picking his brain a little bit on the difficulties and the challenges of leadership. Leadership is hard work, and especially during the crisis that we've been experiencing over the last couple of years. You know, leading yourself, leading a company, or leading at your job is difficult and it's challenging work. So many things to navigate. I've had the opportunity to lead in for-profits, nonprofit, and government organizations, and I can attest to this reality that it is challenging work. There's so many different hats that we must wear as leaders. There's so many different things so many different attributes that we have to showcase. There's so many different things that we have to, do on a day-to-day basis, and the continued growth as a leader, right? We can't stall it in our growth because we'll stall in our leadership. So tell us about a time in your life and in your leadership where you've been stuck, simply stuck. You've hit the wall, you don't know what to do, or you didn't know what to do. For the leader listening today, that's going to be so encouraging, but I want to hear your story. Tell us about that time in your life where you've been stuck. Go ahead, Eric.
Back in 2000, I was an enlisted Marine. I was doing infantry and I was with a boat raid unit, and I got the privilege because of my performance to become raised to the ranks of officer. But I had to go through officer candidate school with a bunch of fresh out college kids who were going to be my peers. And in my ignorance and arrogance, I thought, because as I was being built up for this, I thought I knew it all. That this is going to be easy. I'm going to win this thing. I'm going to be the leader that these guys need and all that stuff. And we have this thing during each phase. There's a 3-phase process. And each phase you have what's called a peer evaluation. And in this peer evaluation, this is where your partners are telling you, ranking who's the best leader of, who they were truly following. And like I said, in my arrogance, I really thought I was doing well until I was called into the drill instructor's office and said, "Hey, we got a problem here. You are dead last. Why are you dead last?" And that just woke me up. I was like, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" And it took, no kidding, about 3 to 5 days to reflect on what I was doing wrong before I got booted out, they would boot me out for failing to be a leader. So I had the ability to sit with people that were like, "Hey, look, I need the honest feedback. We need to talk. What am I missing? What am I not doing right?" And so what I failed to do was I knew the answers, but I failed to include them into the vision. And that's the first thing that they needed to understand, where I was coming from, by telling them what was the vision, how we were going to do that through the mission ideas, and then giving them my core values of how I wanted to help them be successful as a team with me. And so it took being rock bottom, dead last, ego busting, whatever. But those moments, I think, was probably the most powerful moment to help me sit down, reflect, work with my peers, and rebuild what could have potentially been destroyed within the team. So with taking 60 people out for dinner on a Saturday was costly, but it is definitely worth it, because that feedback, that interaction, that made the remaining 8 weeks of that 12-week class more successful, in which we became the honor platoon. We became we did great things. And of that group of 60, I think by the time I retired, about 80% were still in, working their way up the ranks towards the colonel ranks and all that stuff. So these guys did awesome work, and I was glad to be part of that team, to be part of that experience, and have that rock bottom experience to help me understand the legacy of the unit is greater than the legacy of any single person.
Wow. That's so good. Anybody else want to jump right in? You can jump right in, guys.
Go ahead, Jay.
Thanks. I would love to hop in, Eric, because I share a very similar kind of coming to the light and figuring out what leadership actually was. And when I was a brand new EOD guy, I was probably 19 or 20 years old, so pretty young. Mm-hmm. And, we're tasked with, serving and supporting other units. And I'm just like, okay, I got to be a man now. That was my mentality then, where it's like, okay, how do I convince these guys that I'm a man and they should listen to what I have to say? And that's just talk loud and aggressive. And then that'll get my point across and they'll listen to what I have to say. So I was doing a drill, and this was one of the best mentorship moments that I had. Not me, mentoring, so me being mentored. It was my OIC, my officer in charge. He kind of pulled me over. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean? What am I doing? No one died, on this drill. It's like, I'm doing it. We're good." He's like, "No, if you talk like that to anyone that we support, no one's going to bring you out on a mission." Then we kind of after some more mentoring and everything like that, I finally realized it was like, okay, yeah, leadership is not about saying what your point is loud and aggressive. It's about influencing the people that you're supporting and getting that trust, earning their trust so they want to follow you, because in my line of work back then, that was life or death.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely resonate with what you were saying, Eric.
Oh yeah.
Great point.
I can jump in there, Jose, if you don't mind quickly.
Absolutely, Mark.
I had gotten promoted to running a sports stadium. I'd kind of grown up in retail and went into work for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto Raptors here in Canada, and Toronto FC. Took over their retail, their consumer products, and then got promoted into opening the first pro soccer stadium in Canada at BMO Field. Long story short, always a guy who wanted more. Now I'm opening a soccer stadium. I've got 2,000 employees, including part-times, and the opening's not going well. And we're getting closer and closer to the opening, and I'm getting more and more stressed. And my team is busting their hump. They are working 13, 14 hours a day without me asking. These are some of the people that have kind of walked through a wall for me, and I've always treated them really well, but now the pressure is hitting me as a leader. And it's how you react to the pressure in that moment. And I reacted poorly. And we finished our day from walking through construction. And I looked at all of them and I said, you guys shouldn't be very proud of yourself tomorrow. Go home and get some rest, because you got zero accomplished today. Mm-hmm. I went home and I cried. I cried. I just sat there and I cried. And I'm like, that's not me, but the pressure is killing me. And this is a turning point in my life. I'm either going to blame other people, or I'm going to realize I'm a little over my head. I'm going to ask for some help. Even if that's my own team. Brought the team in the next morning at 7 a.m., had a little tear again, told them I was sorry. And I have to tell you, that's never failed me since. Now, I try not to make it a habit to cry every day at work and have to apologize. But I think that was the moment for me where, you talk about authenticity as a leader and being vulnerable. It wasn't planned. To me, that's what it is. It's being able to trust that your team's still going to follow you, even when you've screwed up, and you can acknowledge it. So for me, that was the point where I got the most stuck and unstuck in a hurry. And
I see a theme here. You guys had an awakening right then and there. Nobody really told you, hey, you need to do this, this, and that, right? You really had an awakening. Hey, I'm being a jerk, or hey, this is not working for me, or hey, this is how I'm responding. Go ahead, Andrea.
I can jump in there because you're talking about awakening. And so mine was kind of a literal awakening. So it was early 2018, so probably about 4 years ago to around this time. And I found myself waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep. And I was like, what is going on? I'm a pretty good sleeper. And so I started to take notes and I started to journal, and I was like, okay, what is going on in my life where I'm waking up in the middle of the night? And I started to realize that because I was a professor at the time at a small university, and I started to realize this wasn't where I wanted to be. And this wasn't where I was meant to be, even though I was a strong leader as a professor. And I was well liked and I was well respected, and I helped my students, with everything that I had. But I started to realize that I didn't want to be at the university because I wasn't agreeing with what the administrators were doing. And so I sought some guidance and some mentorship from some of my really strong leaders and mentors that I've had in my life. And I was like, okay, look, I don't know what to do here. And I remember the one being like, okay, well, you can go out in private practice and you can, it sounds like you're not really happy. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to give him one more year. I'm going to give the university one more year. And then God came in and he was like, hey, you're pregnant. And I was like, oh, can't. Bam, exactly. Bam. Okay. I'm not. Okay. I'm supposed to be leaving, but I'm not leaving right now. And so then I, because the university treated me very, very well with maternity leave, like 9 months paid maternity leave. Can't really pass that. Yeah, exactly. You don't pass that up because you don't get that anywhere else in the States. Right. Maybe in Canada, Mark. Maybe.
Mark is shaking his head, yes.
Not in the States. And so then I was like, okay, but it was interesting because then in that next year, that's when I had the opportunity to kind of take this new leadership role and offer a lecture series called Fortifying the Family. And now that's my business's mission. And so 2 years later, I left. So I actually left the university this past July, and I opened my own business called Bright Spot Families. But in that time, in those 2 years that I was still at the university, I had to realize, you have to stop focusing on the things that you don't have control over. And you need to focus in and be a good leader for your students and focus on the things that you do have control over. And so from that point on, I decided, okay, what do I value in my job? I value the relationships with my students. I value leading my students and getting them into careers that they love. And all of the other bullshit, I'm just going to let go by the wayside because I have no control over administrators. And so that's a point where I was stuck, but thankfully I got out of it.
Andrea, thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like that point in your life or that season in your life, because it was really a season,
Right, yeah.
And it sounds like that season in your life was a season not only where you found yourself stuck, but it was also the season of discovery, right? Where you allowed, because you were quote unquote stuck, right? Yeah. You found different aspects of what you were called to do, were created to do in this next season of your life, right? Versus if you would have just said, the heck with this, I'm out of here. I don't want to do this, So really God turned that quote unquote inconvenient, right? Now is not the perfect time to be pregnant, right?
No, not at all.
Right. And it was that seemingly inconvenience that turned into the place where you were able to find purpose and find a new direction for your life and your career. So oftentimes for the leader listening, if you find yourself stuck today, like Mark and Jay and Eric and Andrea just shared, oftentimes it is in those moments where you do make a dumb decision, or you do feel like you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. That is where you find purpose. So if you find yourself stuck today in your own personal life or in your leadership, because we all know, right? And sometimes as leaders, whether it is in the corporate world, in the government world, in the business world, sometimes we compartmentalize, I can never say that word, our lives, right? We think that this part of leadership is different than my personal life or my finances, right, Jay? So, and Brian, so everything is interconnected and everything affects another area. Just like Pastor Mike is here, he can attest to your faith component, right? Your faith affects other aspects of your life as well. And so when we find ourselves stuck, I often teach people that when you find yourself stuck in life, and I love talking to leaders, because oftentimes the leaders, we think we have to have it all figured out, right? We have to have it all figured out. But the reality is sometimes we don't have it figured out, and we find ourselves stuck in life, or stuck in a decision, or stuck in how to deal with this department, or how do I deal with this situation in my business, or whatever it is. And it is in this place that you begin this journey of getting unstuck. And I always say the way to get unstuck is to figuring out where you currently are, And first, where are you today? Where are you? That was one of the most ancient questions. And I love that, because it's figuring out, where am I? And that's what Jay, Eric, Mark, Andrea, that's what you all described. You figured out, where am I really? And it is when you had that realization of, man, this is where I am. I don't want to be here, right? It's your starting place to get that breakthrough and begin that process of getting unstuck. Pastor Mike, would you like to share? Yeah.
I had multiple times in my life where I was stuck. I stuck twice. Two major times that I instantly think of was when I've been in ministry for 20 years. But the first time that I would say really, really stuck was like when I first planted the current church that I'm in right now. We planted it in New Jersey in 2012, and 2 weeks after we started our very first service, we got hit with Hurricane Sandy. And our whole town was, the town was like shut down, no power, it seemed like a post-apocalyptic city that we were living in. And so, we did so much legwork to get to that place, and then just to see it come to a complete halt. So that was like the first time I really felt like ultimately stuck. All my chips were in the center of the table when it came to this new church plant. And so I was stuck there. And then if I'm honest, one of the major times that I've been stuck was these last couple of years, this season. I'm a pastor of a multi-site church and right outside of Philadelphia and on the New Jersey side. And we're extremely diverse. Now, a lot of times when pastors say diverse, you have 1 or 2 Black people. That's not our case. We have like all the colors of Benetton represented in our church. But so that's really beautiful, right? But in this season, it was a pain in the ass because everyone had opinions. Everyone had different angles. We had the pro-maskers, the anti-maskers, the pro-vaxxers, the anti-maskers. Remember in the beginning, we were like, yes, Black Lives Matter, but then the cops were pissed off because we said that. It was just like there was nothing that came out of my mouth didn't piss somebody off in the congregation, right? We're, just even a couple weeks into the pandemic, a couple months into the pandemic, remember there was like that incident with the Asian community, right? I got up and I prayed for the Asian community and I got reprimanded by this white lady saying that I don't pray for white people enough. Or I'm always praying for other ethnicities. I don't pray for white people. So it's those kind of things that like this season, man, like if I was involved, I would have been. Going into this season. But in those, with all that being said, all of those things, every time I'm stuck, I run into these 3 factors. I run into, if you have any kind of platform or you're leading, an organization, beyond 10 people, you deal with the critics, you deal with the challenges, and then you also have to face your own character, right? Those are the 3 things that when you're stuck, those are the things you have to face. You have to face the critics, you have to face the challenges, and you have to face your own character.
That's so
and so, with the critics, and I know sometimes I've been on other podcasts and they kind of try to wrestle with me in regards to critics. Oh, critics aren't always a bad thing. To use the same glossary, when I talk about critics aren't the people that are giving you advice. Critics are the people that they don't want you to change, they want you to quit.
Wow.
That to me is my definition of criticism. Those kind of critics, right? Like it's not even I'm okay with constructive criticism,
right?
But for the sake of this conversation, when I say critics, they don't want you to change; they want you to quit. And so you have those people, attacking you. You have the actual challenge in front of you, and then you also have your character. And so I think the thing that allowed me to get unstuck is that I had to take a couple steps back and say, what are the things I can't change? And then you're ready for this one. The things I can't change, I have to shift my mindset. I have to have a paradigm shift that the things I can't change are actually gifts. Then I got to figure out why those things are gifts.
Wow, that's so good.
And that was a game changer. I can't change Hurricane Sandy. Okay, how is it a gift? So the way it was a gift was, we're expecting, it changed my paradigm, 12 years ago, like where it's like the church was like, hey, if you build it, they will come. But we couldn't build anything. Everything was shut down. But instead, it mobilized us. We had to shift our budget to go, hey, we're going to fill up U-Hauls with supplies, with water, with diapers, with all this other stuff. And we're going to reach out in the community. That actually catapulted us into a movement way faster than just a Sunday morning service. Again, those things I can't change. I have to consider it a gift, right? And so it requires me to change. And it helped me it forged my character a little bit. Same thing even now where I can't change what's happening with the pandemic or the political arena. So it's a gift, Mike. So how is it a gift? Okay, now I have to play the mediator. And so I started embracing the opportunity to teach our church to live in harmony, live in unity, and that where we don't have agreement, let's have alignment. right? And if you disagree, you could disagree and not be disagreeable. And so I started helping us kind of shape our character as a church, because yes, that diversity is beautiful, but it needs to be stewarded well. Anyway, long story short, I don't want to preach here, but
no, this is good.
I think the thing that really kicks me out of stuck mode is, okay, what are the things I can't change? Okay, I can't complain about them. I can't moan about them. They're a gift. I got to figure out how they're a gift.
Hey there, before we continue the episode, let me just share my gift to you as a way of saying thanks for tuning in. Become a leader worth listening to by discovering the top 10 reasons why people listen to you. Download now through the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the episode.
So, Mike, you said 3 things. You said there are going to be, when you're stuck in your leadership, and you were real vulnerable with us, and we appreciate that. And that's what I believe leaders need more than ever, right? Other vulnerable leaders who will say, hey, this is how we lead, and it's okay to lead this way. But you said that you pay attention to the critics, you look at the challenge, and then you look at your character. And I love that, because especially the third one, your character, who you are as a leader, right? What's going on inside of you? So does anybody else want to share on what Mike said, or what we're talking about here?
Yeah, if I could, this is Jay. If I could piggyback on what Pastor Mike was saying, I mean, yeah, that sentiment was great and awesome pointers. The self-awareness and just knowing where you're at right now is so big, so huge. And we need to have goals and focus on where we want to be. But if we're constantly thinking about, oh, that's where I want to be, that's burnout. I mean, that's 100% burnout. And that's all you're going to be thinking about. And when it's not happening, it sucks, right? You're not going to, that just sucks. I mean, I'm sure we all have experienced this phenomenon, what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But once we acknowledge where we're at right now and own it, then it's just growth. Now we are ready to grow. And that's so important for leaders out there. Like, just because you are a leader doesn't mean you're leading anyone, right? You could just be in that position. And leadership is when you are influencing others to do what you say because they want to do it, not because you told them to do it, but they want to do it. They believe in what you said, and they believe in the mission. And that's never going to happen if you're not self-aware. So that was huge.
Yeah, I love that, Jay, and it's so true. And it even piggybacks what Mark was saying earlier, where you have to show that vulnerability. Mark said, jokingly, I'm not going to cry in every meeting, and absolutely you shouldn't, right? But there's moments in your leadership when you don't get it right. There's moments in your leadership, whether it's at home, whether you're leading your kids, whether you're leading, oftentimes it just, one of my pet peeves is when I see leaders leading in the corporate place or in the marketplace, and yet they're not leading at home, right? They're not leading in their community. They're not leading with the people closest to them. And we all know that a ripple effect of change happens the places closest to you, right? So you throw that stone out, there's a ripple effect of change outwardly, but I believe it starts inwardly. And what Mark was saying, showing that vulnerability, even if you have to apologize like he did, right? And say, hey, guys, I'm sorry, but I messed up. Guys, I'm sorry, but I screwed up. And that could help you catapult you to that next level and help you get unstuck, right?
Can I say one thing about Mike?
Absolutely.
Mike said?
Yes, go for it.
The critic piece. So being a psychologist, like, I love me some critics. Difficult people are like my jam, because here's the thing. If you can pull them in and get a critic on the same page with you, life is so much easier. And believe me, it grinds my gears when everyone brings, you have a critic and they're just like bringing problems and problems and problems, and they have no solutions for you. But for me, I like to take a step back and say, okay, what is it that this critic needs right now? Which of the 4 A's do they need? Do they need appreciation? Do they need acknowledgement? Do they need acceptance, or do they need approval? Because if you can figure out which of those 4 A's that critic needs, chances are they're going to come into the fold and they're going to be your most loyal followers.
Yes, that is so true. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so something that I have found really helpful in terms of getting unstuck and dealing with critics is really leaning into community. And I don't mean just the people around me in the organization or the people I'm leading, but people outside, people who know me, who can lead me toward a more self-aware place, like Jay was saying. Community was a huge theme in my life in 2021. And, the amazing thing about having close friends that know you, that aren't emotionally attached to the situation you're leading in, they are not going to take the criticisms as personally as you do. So they might be able to kind of sit down with you and sift through them and say, you know what, this person, they may have a good point that you just can't see because it's a blind spot. Or they might say, well, that person is just a complete hater and troll and you should ignore them and, never think of them again. But leaning into community is going to put you in a place where you can see what you're not seeing. Having friends around you, they don't even have to be people who are experts in a certain area, although if they have leadership expertise, that's great because you can learn from their mistakes. But just people who can say, I know this about you, I know this about your personality, and I can see how someone who doesn't understand your personality might chafe a little bit about you saying something to them the way you said it. Or I can understand how this policy that you put in place is making that single mom feel singled out and you completely didn't see it. Community like that can really help encourage you, strengthen you in the times that you feel stuck, that you feel like you're just being overwhelmed by haters. And for me, it's given me a lot of pathways out of situations that I thought were completely hopeless.
That's so good. Thank you, Brian. So on point. So let's just recap a little bit. If you're stuck in your leadership, or personally or professionally, and you guys can add to this if I miss any, but just to piggyback what Pastor Mike was saying, Brian was saying, all of you really pay attention, or at least look at what the critics are saying. Am I right? Right? Look at what the critics are saying if you're stuck in that area. Lean into community and learn from them because they have something of value to tell you. Dissect your challenge, whatever challenge you might find yourself in, dissect that, break it apart. Why is this causing me to be stuck in? And then analyze, or maybe analyze your challenge and dissect your character. How about that? So now leadership is challenging, but leadership is not all challenging, right? The reason we're in leadership is because we also enjoy the beauty of leadership, which is to see people's lives transform. We want to help other people. We want to serve other people. So what principles you think can a leader be reminded of today if they're at a down point, or if they're at a point in their life where they're wondering, should I continue to lead? What moment or a story in your own life where you realize this is why I lead? It gets challenging, it gets tough, but you know what? This is why I lead. What was that moment for you?
I'll take point on this one.
Go ahead, Jay.
When I was doing personal finance coaching, and I was still in the military, and I was going around to different commands, and I would do budgets, right? I would do budget coaching with the top 3 people at the command. So that's in the Navy, that's the commanding officer, the executive officer, and the command master chief, two officers and a senior enlisted. And I had the luxury of knowing their reputations around the community. And that was huge because I started noticing a pattern of those that had everything kind of squared away already in their budget. They were living within their means, consistently investing in retirement. They had an emergency fund. They, so on and so forth. They had a good foundation financially. That's what they were doing at home. Their reputations typically, and I don't know the math on this. I forgot to do the math on this, but typically, right? I would say 9 times out of 10, it was those are the reputations that they made decisions based off of the command members, the mission, and that's how they made decisions. Now, those people that I did budgets with, that it kind of was brought to light, they were very overextended, living outside their means, had 4 to 6 rentals, 2 of which were vacant. Maxed out credit cards, just like way overextended, no emergency fund. Those were the types that had the reputations of chasing rank, chasing medals. And Jose, in your background, I mean, I'm pretty sure you saw the same type of, structures of people like, okay, chasing this rank, chasing this next qual or whatever, so I can just level up on paper, right? I'm leveling myself up on paper. I'm not making decisions based off of anyone. I'm doing this all to make myself look good. It turns out in their personal lives, they're hurting. Okay. Yeah. They're hurting. And that's a huge leadership that was another awakening that I had of like, okay, this is linked. And that's when I got into leadership coaching also. It's like it all and what you were talking about in the beginning of, faith, family, finance, all these things are linked, and they are a direct reflection of the leader that you are. If you're treating your family like garbage, if your finances are in disarray and you're not paying attention to it, those two things alone are going to cause so many problems for you, because it's just always going around in the background. Right. It's always in the background. And when you have work stuff, when you're trying to lead people, that is going on still. And the faith aspect, that's great. You have to believe in something. Even if you're a secular person, you got to believe in something, right? Doesn't matter. Believe in something bigger than yourself. Whether that's the mission you signed up to do, the job that you're at, what they're doing, what their mission statement is, or if it's your company, what is your mission statement? You got to have faith in that. And those are so big.
That's so good. Go ahead, Pastor Mike.
Just to piggyback on what Jay just said, on the many times I've wanted to quit. I think every good pastor has like a resignation letter in their draft box, right? But every time I wanted to quit, you talk about, when Jay mentioned the whole faith dynamic, and I'll translate this even outside of my own faith framework, but every time I wanted to quit, I go back to, there's a story of Jesus in the garden in Matthew 26, and he's in the garden and he's praying, and he's basically praying a quitting prayer. Some people don't like to frame it that way, but it's true. He's saying, God, Father, if you can take this cup away from me. So the reason I reference that is because you had Jesus, who's supposed to be our example. He literally had to go to the Father and get permission to quit. And he didn't get that permission to quit. And so whenever I want to quit, I have to go back to the authority that put me on this mission in the first place and get permission to quit. Right. And so, I then, obviously the answer so far has been no, you're going to keep going. Right. But so in that, I take my posture has to change. All right, God, I'm not going to insult you with small thinking and safe living. I'm going to keep on going. Right. I'm going to keep on moving forward. So even outside of a framework of my personal faith, but, like what Jay said, even from a secular mindset, there's a calling that you felt. There's, the universe, you felt like the universe wanted you to do this in the beginning, or you felt like, you're the CEO of a company, man, really saw this in you, to kind of go back to that and get permission for the person who helped you catapult this into, a forward motion. Get permission. Can I still quit? Right? Because even though you're losing faith in yourself, they'll probably still have faith in you.
That's so good.
And to piggyback on that, at the end of the day, as a leader, it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about those that we're leading. We're serving them. Well, we should be. And if we quit, think about it. You're not just quitting on you. You're quitting on a lot of other people.
That point right there from Jay is literally also the reason why I started leading. Like, we really need to think bigger than ourselves, and not just in the now, but more so like beyond our lifetimes even. Because imagine if we stop leading like for the good things and the good causes that we are involved in right now, what will the generations in the future look like? Like, it's one important question that we also want to ask ourselves whenever we're faced with a time when we want to quit. I remember my father would always illustrate this. By the way, my father is also a pastor, and I'm always in the front seat when he says this. But like, he always says that he wants to still live like up to 70, 80 years old, just for the sole reason that he wants his grandchildren to, to come to church, to Sunday school. Whenever my father says that, I always think of the future generations. I always think of the young people to come, the next fathers, the next soldiers, the next teachers, the next pastors, the next businessmen. And so when we are faced with this question of like, am I gonna quit? Like, I think it's also really important to ask how long or how far will the good thing or good cause that I'm leading right now last?
That is so good. Wow. RJ nailed it right there. Guys, thank you so much. This was very valuable, very insightful. And I know that the people listening to this show are going to be encouraged, which is our mission here, right? Encouraged. They're going to be awakened, and they're going to give some practical tools. You guys dropped some gold. Thank you so much for sharing a Saturday with us. Take care.
If you have any questions or suggestions for upcoming episodes, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or email me directly at jose@reachinghighernow.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time.